I'm Brannon Liston-Smith. I'm a consultant at EY, more specifically an actuarial consultant in the pensions division. I've just started, literally 3 weeks into the job. So mostly been doing training and things so far, but ultimately I will be doing actuarial work concerning pensions. So modeling how pensions pots are going to develop and consulting with clients to advise them on pension strategy.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about sort of your career paths and your motivation for that. So, what drew you to actuarial work after doing a pure maths degree at university?
Yeah, it's a great question. For people who know a little bit about what actuaries do, it's a very mathsy type of work, a lot of calculations involved and some fairly complicated statistics and things like that. And so I think the first thing that drew me to it was just more maths, basically. I like maths. I'm good at it, and so that was a real joy. It was a way to go into the world of business, but really utilizing my mathematical skills. I think what drew me to being an actuarial consultant specifically, and EY also, is a bit more of an emphasis on also interacting with people and actual consulting, but within that space. So it was for me a perfect combination of being able to use my mathematical skills and actually meeting people and helping clients with their needs rather than just kind of being in a back room somewhere doing calculations. And also career prospects, I suppose, is a key thing for me. I mean, actuaries are in demand, and yeah, there are lots of different routes that you can take, particularly once you qualify, and it's a very diverse range of work. And so it seemed like a career that I could really get my teeth into, I suppose.
Perfect. So when you were finishing your degree, what made EY sort of stand out to you in comparison to other options?
Yeah. Well, I studied in St Andrews, obviously, in Scotland. I'm
Yeah.
Welsh originally, but I came up to Scotland just over 6 years ago now, when I started my degree. And I love Scotland. So I suppose that the first thing for me really was that I really wanted to stay in Scotland and ideally move to Edinburgh, was my goal. And so I started to look at what companies were in Edinburgh. Turns out there are a lot of them, right? But yeah, so EY, I mean, firstly, they had a really good graduate program for actuaries. They really they know what they're doing. They've got quite a history of training actuaries. Maybe not quite so much as firms that just have purely actuarial staff, but actually, I found also that that was a strength, that I would be interacting with a large range of different consultants and accountants and other people in financial services. And so it was that combination of, they knew what they were doing training actuaries, but also that I would be in a mix of lots of different people. And I suppose what made EY stand out even over the other big four accountancy firms and other similar firms is the culture, really. EY really make a big point of being a kind of friendly company, and that they treat their staff really well and they really care about their people. And certainly that's been my experience so far. Really kind of genuinely, they seem to look out for us and want to foster a very comfortable and friendly and welcoming atmosphere. And so yeah, those were the key deciding points for me, really.
Great. Um, so did you always plan on actuarial consulting, or did you consider other careers first?
That's a great question. I considered all sorts of things, actually. I'm a musician. I'm a singer. I did a lot of music at university alongside my degree, and for a while, I was thinking of trying to do that professionally. So completely
Okay.
different. Yeah, I think a combination of me maybe not quite being good enough to really warrant that, but also that it's just a very risky career path to take, and
Mhm.
it's all or nothing, really. Led me to look at jobs where I'd be using my maths, which was my other kind of passion, I suppose. Since school, really, I've always just loved messing around with numbers. I thought about academia for a while. Obviously, I did a master's degree, um, and after doing my dissertation, which I really enjoyed, for a time I was thinking, should I do a PhD or further academic research? But I think what really clinched it for me, I ended up graduating with not a massively clear idea of what I actually wanted to do, and ended up working in a job which I really wasn't enjoying at all. It wasn't using my skills well, I thought, and it was kind of, yeah, just a million miles away from what I was hoping for. And so I think I really decided, right, I've got to find myself something solid.
Hmm.
Um, and I started to research more then into actuarial science and actually how suitable it seemed for me. So yeah, really, I only decided that I wanted to do this just over a year ago. But I'm really glad that I did. I think I've kind of found my niche. So yeah, there you go.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions on your sort of early career experience. Um, so how did your experience as a recent graduate help you adjust quickly to EY?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose, first of all, there are a lot of new grads joining at one time. I think there are about 80 of us in the Edinburgh office across multiple service lines. And in the whole UK, I mean, thousands of new graduates. So coming in that cohort, we're all from a very similar background. We've all just recently completed degrees. That definitely, I feel like part of the group there. I suppose we all have a common experience, so that helps, I guess. But yeah, skills from university that help me adjust. I suppose I have to do a professional qualification as an actuary, 13 exams over a number of years. And I think at university, I built up good study habits, or I hope
Yeah.
ones that were good. I mean, good enough to get me through uni, I guess. And so that's probably going to put me in a pretty good position. And also kind of timekeeping, punctuality, being at lectures and classes and on time and delivering assessments when they're meant to be in and things will definitely help me adjust to the workplace where a lot more will be demanded of me probably in stricter timescales. So
Yeah. Okay. Great. So looking back, is there anything that you wish that you'd maybe taken advantage of more while at St Andrews to prepare for your career?
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I suppose for me, because as I said, I only really decided on this pathway once I'd graduated. It wasn't even really in my view at the time I was studying. So there are all sorts of things that I definitely could have taken advantage of. I suppose internships would be the biggest thing. I didn't do an internship at all in any type of job, and although obviously it's not required to get the job. A few of my new colleagues did internships, and that definitely gave them a head start in terms of the work that they would be doing and kind of meeting the team already, being uh, inside the culture already when they joined. So yeah, I, I think an internship definitely would have helped me. And also, I suppose selecting my modules. If I knew that I was going to be going into a more, financial mathematics job, I probably would have taken more modules that were relevant to this course, particularly because for the actuarial exams, you can get certain exemptions if you've already covered the material in a degree. And there's a possibility that I might be able to get one just based on the stats modules that I did, but I almost certainly could have got more if I'd have planned it more carefully. So
Yeah.
yeah, if I could go back and do it again, I suppose that's what I would do.
Hmm. Okay, great. Um, so obviously St Andrews has its own specific culture. Do you notice ways in which the skills or mindset that you developed here, um, that they give you like a specific edge in your work?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think St Andrews certainly has a very unique culture, as you said,
Mhm.
among universities. I would say that it
Yeah.
um, you know, literally half the population of the town is university staff and students, and so that there's a real community feel, right, which you wouldn't necessarily get studying in a large city like London or something, where you know, you kind of melt into the crowd. So I think that having that network, that you know, maintaining relationships is really important in St Andrews. If you fall out with someone, you will see them on the street all the time, right? And so being able to maintain a friendly relationship with your peers, whether you're kind of naturally disposed to be friends or not, is really helpful. And that's certainly required in the workplace too. You can't be friends with everyone, but you need to be able to get on with everyone and work with everyone. And so, yeah, I think St Andrews does actually prepare you quite well for that scenario. Yeah, that stands out to me, I suppose.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to ask you a little bit on sort of workplace culture and maybe advice that you could give. How would you describe the culture of EY, especially for new graduates?
Yeah, as I kind of touched on earlier, I suppose, in one of the factors that drew me to EY was that their culture is very friendly and welcoming and warm. And I felt from day one that I've been, you know, already like a valued member of the company, even though currently I'm not providing that much value for them, I suppose. But they're investing in me, you know. And yeah, so I think I would recommend EY to anyone. I mean, you feel, yeah, part of the team straight away, and everyone from you know, fairly junior staff up all the way up until partners and directors and things are always just happy to help you out and answer any questions you have. So that's great. Certainly the expectations are high. I mean, you know, EY is a global company with, I think, you know, multi-billion-dollar revenues, right? It's, you know, it's a serious business, and things are expected of you, and the work that you're given even right from the start is tough, and the pace is quicker than university, and you know, I think you have to be on your toes. I find that exciting. I enjoy a bit of pressure, and but as I say, pressure applied within the context of friendliness and kind of care. So for me, it's the perfect blend. But yeah, I wouldn't expect to come through the doors of EY and kind of have an easy ride, right? Like it's going to be tough, but everyone's here to help. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Great. So just tying into my last question, what do you enjoy the most about working there?
Yeah, I suppose so far, it's the people, really. It's kind of the cliche answer. I think every EY employee you'll ask, from, you know, very junior level all the way up, will say the people are what makes it what it is. But yeah, I just think that the feeling that, you know, in the office, I really genuinely feel like I could go up to anybody and ask them a question, and that they would be willing to answer. And I don't think that's the
Yeah.
case in most places. So yeah.
Mhm. Great. What advice would you give to someone considering actuarial consulting?
Yeah. I would say, if you're considering it already, you probably do have the skills needed. I think it's quite a niche thing, and so if you've kind of found out that it exists, you're probably going to be pretty suited for it. So just go for it, really. I mean, you know, as I said, I didn't know a massive amount about it until just before I started applying for these jobs, and yeah, essentially, if you enjoy maths, you have to be a mathematician. You have to like doing mathematics.
Yeah.
If you're someone like that, then yeah, just give it a go. I think you have to be prepared to study hard, and to take lots of exams that are notoriously difficult. I mean, it's renowned as being kind of one of the hardest qualifications to get, actually, I think, particularly alongside working a full-time job. But yeah, I think it's great. It's you know, it's a profession that's very much needed in the world,
Mhm.
and yeah, there are probably people out there who would be great actuaries who don't even really know what it is. So yeah, give it a go would be my advice.
Okay, perfect. Um, Looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently during your studies?
Hmm. Yeah, I suppose I touched on this in a way earlier that certainly kind of orientating myself more towards actuarial science would have been good had I known this was where I would end up. So, taking an internship or studying modules that were maybe slightly more relevant to the skills required. But I suppose the fundamental thing I probably should have researched earlier what kind of jobs that I might be looking at, right? I suppose I had this notion
Yeah.
that the only job you could really get where you just did maths for a living was to be like an academic or some sort of scientist or something, right? But actually, there's a whole world out there of mathsy jobs that are more in the corporate world. And so I think if I'd have found out that this exists a couple of years ago, I probably then would have just put things in place to go for that. So yeah, just research early and really know what your career could be, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna ask you for a little bit of advice for current students right now.
Mhm.
Um, what advice would you give to current St Andrews students who are thinking about pursuing actuarial work?
Yeah. I think first and foremost is try and get excited about it, I suppose. Really what everyone's looking for in interviews, particularly for a job like this where the skills required to actually do the job at a high level are built up over years and years and years. Like no one goes into an actuarial graduate job knowing like what they're going to be doing. You have to build up the experience, right? And so what they're really looking for at interview is passion and dedication and interest, right? That you're interested in the subject. I think, yeah. So the the number one piece of advice is like try and get excited about actuarial work. Why would you enjoy it, and why
Mhm.
would your skills, your soft skills, your interpersonal skills be applicable?
Yeah,
Um, and then on top of that, I suppose it would be try and take as many modules as you can that prepare you for the work. So lots of statistics, and then any kind of maybe economics modules even, or financial maths modules that could just build up your skill set there. And also just stay on top of trends a little bit. A lot of interview questions will ask you, for instance, I'm in pensions, they'll ask you kind of, tell us something interesting about what's going on with pensions right now, just read The Economist a little bit or the Financial Times, or, just, yeah, to know a little bit about the current trends, particularly as a consultant. The whole point is that you know what's going on so you can help your clients deal with that change. And
yeah.
so, yeah, just know a bit about the world, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you had sort of said that you hadn't done any internships or anything like
Mm.
that. Um, how would you say students could, from your perspective, best position themselves in terms of networking to follow a path similar to yours?
Yeah. Um, yeah, again, as I said, I'm probably, not the best person to answer this question in some way. I took a bit of a funny route here, but yeah, I would say apply for internships. I think, I mean, the application process for graduate jobs is very time consuming. You have to do multiple levels of assessments and interviews, virtual interviews, recorded interviews. It can be quite taxing to do it. The process for application for internships is similar, but usually with slightly fewer steps. And of course, you'd be doing it in your penultimate year of study, usually rather than your final year of study,
Mhm.
when you're usually a little less busy, unless you're a chemistry student or something. I know their third year is horrendous, but for most people, you have a bit more time in your hands in your third year. So if you can get an internship in the summer of your third year, and then you go into your fourth year like knowing that you have a job provided you get a 2-1 or whatever is required, right? And then you just can focus on that. I don't think I could have done my applications in my final year. I actually did them, of course, the year after I graduated, so that was fine. But yeah, go for the internships, and if you don't get one, well, then you get another stab at it when you apply just for the graduate job the next year, right? So that would be the number one piece of advice, which I didn't follow. But if someone had really sat me down and made me think of it in that way, I probably would have done. So yeah, and that will build your network just organically. I mean, you'll literally meet the people who you'll probably be working with the year after, right? So yeah, I think internships are very helpful, and I wish that I'd have taken advantage of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about a sort of broader career outlook now. So, where do you see the actuarial profession heading, and how might students from places like St Andrews prepare for that future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the thing right now that's going to change everything is AI, right? I'm sure everyone talks about this, is kind of it is going to really change the way that we work in almost every field, particularly in something like actuarial work, where traditionally a lot of the work was doing calculations. That's going to be less of a feature now, because computers are getting better and better at doing the calculations themselves, right? So yeah, I think getting comfortable with AI, not using it as a kind of cheat to write things for you, kind of write me an essay and just sit back and copy and paste. I mean, getting used to using AI in a like an assistant, so you can bounce questions off it. You can say, fiddle with this, help me write this in a slightly nicer way, or using AI to kind of learn how to maybe code, certainly how to use Excel, programs like that. Just, yeah, getting used to using AI as part of your workflow. I think that's going to be very important. But also, broader trend, I think AI is going to make actuaries to be more and more consultants rather than mathematicians. I think that fewer calculations and more interpretation and crucially presentation of data. Within pensions specifically, which is going to be my specialism, there's a type of pension called a defined benefit pension, which people may or may not have heard of. It's a kind of older type of pension, which requires more mathematical work, because essentially defined benefit means that at your retirement age, you know how much you're going to receive. And then it's the job of the pension provider to make sure they've invested the money properly to make sure that benefit's there at the end. Whereas most modern pensions now are what's called defined contribution, which is where you put in X a month and then whatever's left at the end, that's what you get. So it's a lot more kind of straightforward in some ways. And traditionally, a large proportion, I mean, almost all of the actuarial work in pensions has been with defined benefit pensions. But no one is really offering them anymore. And so all the defined benefit work now pretty much is with legacy schemes. And so pensions actuaries are going to have to diversify their skill set a little bit, working with defined contribution pensions, maybe actually doing a bit of work in life insurance as well, or something so yeah, I think the life of a pensions actuary is going to be more dynamic than it used to be, which is an exciting thing, but also could be a bit scary. I mean, in some ways, I've joined pensions actuarial at the worst time because all our work's disappearing. But in another sense, I've joined at a really exciting time, because we're now going to discover what it looks like to be a pensions actuary in the world of defined contribution pensions. That sounds very kind of nerdy and niche, but that's, yeah, if you want to be a pensions actuary, there you go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That is the interview wrapping up now. So one last question. This might be a bit of a rogue one, but do you see the actuarial skill set opening doors into sort of non-traditional areas like climate risk, data science, or ESG? And what sort of analytical and problem solving training that you got from St Andrews was an advantage to you?
Okay, good question. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I don't know yet the kind of real intricacies of certain projects. I know for sure that actuaries, can basically work in any sector that has insurance involved, or kind of predicting probabilistically what will happen with the financial product over time. And so certainly, you know, insurance for energy companies, or I suppose climate insurance, like, you know, insuring a house against flood damage, or you know, extreme heat or something. So I think the climate changing is going to play much more of a role in actuarial work, and that we're going to have to consider the new climate in our calculations.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a very sophisticated problem-solving mindset that you have to have, and that I hope I will develop, right? That yeah, dealing with lots of data, and in quite a careful way. And so I think that certainly training as an actuary, and then going on to do something else, which is, yeah, looking at kind of large data sets, and do problem solving with that, is definitely possible. It's a good place for anyone who wants to develop their numerical skills and kind of analytical skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in St Andrews, so yeah, I studied pure maths, so mostly doing proofs and things, which the actual stuff I was working on was very abstract. My dissertation was in topological groups, which is kind of, you know, completely unrelated to the real world in some ways. But the actual skills you develop, writing proofs, and kind of really being careful about, you know, have I covered every case, and is everything right? Is everything in order? That's definitely given me a really good eye for detail, and a good intuition for kind of when something works or when it doesn't, and, you know, kind of if something's out of place. Or, yeah. So I think St Andrews in general, just it's an excellent university, and they push you, you know, whatever degree you study gives you a good mindset to begin with. But yeah, studying maths of any sort, pure maths in particular, in my case, yeah, that helps with problem solving and analytical skills for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It was great to hear from you.